In late 2025, tensions in the Middle East reached a boiling point. Iran's nuclear program, long a point of contention, had accelerated after months of failed negotiations with Western powers. Israel claimed that Tehran was within months of producing a nuclear warhead, and U.S. intelligence reports echoed those concerns. The U.S. increased its military presence in the Persian Gulf, sending 2 aircraft carrier strike groups into the region, while Israel ramped up its long-range strike readiness. Iran, in turn, fortified its coastal defenses, activated its Revolutionary Guard naval units, and conducted large-scale missile drills targeting mock enemy bases. But the shock came from Moscow. Russia, still locked in confrontation with the West over Ukraine and other geopolitical disputes, announced a clear, public ultimatum. Any attack on the sovereign territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran will be considered an attack on Russian interests and will trigger an immediate and proportional response. Russian officials claimed that Tehran was a strategic partner in both defense and energy cooperation. Reports leaked from Moscow indicated that S-500 air defense systems, Russian military advisors, and even hypersonic missile batteries had been quietly stationed in Iranian territory. Satellite images from Western analysts confirmed unusual Russian naval deployments near the Strait of Hormuz. Kremlin sources hinted that any unauthorized U.S.-Israeli strike could escalate into direct confrontation, not just in the Middle East, but globally. Scene 1, the Kremlin War Room. Dim lights, a long oak table, and President Mikhail Orlov leaning forward, his eyes cold as steel. Around him, senior generals, intelligence chiefs, and foreign policy advisors. Orlov: the Americans are arrogant enough to think we won't act. Israel believes we are bluffing. They have forgotten history. General Sokolov, a towering figure with a scar on his temple, unfolded a map. Red circles marked U.S. bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Blue lines indicated Russian missile strike trajectories. Sokolov: we can cripple their regional assets within 40 minutes of engagement. Orlov nodded slowly. Prepare the Hermes Protocol. Send a coded message to Tehran. They must hold until we give the signal. Scene 2, Washington, D.C., Pentagon Situation Room. Defense Secretary Janet Cole paced the floor as CIA Director Mark Hensley delivered the latest intelligence. Hensley: our intercepts confirm Russia has forward-deployed Zircon hypersonic missiles to Bushehr and Bandar Abbas. They're also moving a submarine into the Arabian Sea nuclear-armed. Cole's jaw tightened. And Israel? Hensley: they're ready to strike Iran's Fordow facility within 72 hours. They're asking for our mid-air refueling support. If we say no, they'll do it alone. President Howard entered the room. He glanced at the reports, then looked up at his generals. And what if Russia's warning isn't just words? Scene 3, Tel Aviv, Israel Defense Headquarters. Prime Minister David Regev stood before a digital display showing satellite imagery of Iran's nuclear sites. Regev: we survived alone in 73. We will survive alone now. But make no mistake, if Russia fires, we fire back. The IDF Chief of Staff, General Ben-Ari, warned, Sir, if we hit Fordow, Russia may not just retaliate here. They could hit our allies. Could be global war. Regev's gaze hardened. Sometimes, the only way to avoid destruction is to strike first. Scene 4, Persian Gulf, USS Ronald Reagan. The massive carrier cut through the waters under a blood-red sunset. Fighter jets roared overhead as sailors prepared for potential combat. Below deck, a U.S. Navy intelligence officer briefed the crew. Officer: if hostilities start, the Russians will jam comms, target our radar, and possibly hit us with hypersonic missiles before we even see them. Our only advantage is speed and unpredictability. Scene 5, Breaking Point. 3 days later, in the early hours of the morning, radar operators in Israel detected unusual movement over the Caspian Sea. Simultaneously, Russian Black Sea Fleet ships activated weapons systems. In Moscow, President Orlov made the final call. Orlov: transmit to Washington and Tel Aviv. You have 1 hour to leave Iranian airspace, or the countdown begins. The world held its breath. Inside Israel's underground Bor military command bunker, red warning lights flashed. Generals huddled over digital maps, speaking in rapid Hebrew. Prime Minister Regev stood at the center, arms crossed. Regev, they're bluffing. Russia won't risk direct war with us. They're already bogged down in Ukraine. A voice cut in through the comms IDF radar command. Radar officer, sir, we have multiple high-speed signatures coming from the Caspian. Estimated impact time, 14 minutes. Silence fell. The room's oxygen seemed to vanish. Secretary Cole slammed her hand on the table. Cole, they're moving. The Russians just launched hypersonics from Iranian territory. This isn't a drill. President Howard stared at the big screen. A live feed from a satellite showed glowing missile trails streaking across the sky. Howard, get me Regev. Now! A secure line opened. The Israeli leader's voice was tight. Howard, David, you need to abort. This is no longer about Iran. This is about surviving the next 30 minutes. Regev, and let Iran go nuclear under Russian protection? That would be our end. The line went dead. The aircraft carrier's radar operators picked up unknown subsurface activity. Sonar officer, contact bearing 095, deep, speed 5 knots. Likely Russian Yazan-class submarine. Admiral Turner's face went pale. Nuclear capable. Keep all ASW units on it. If they breach weapons range, we strike first. Suddenly, the Aegis defense alarm blared. Inbound missiles detected, possibly headed for the carrier group. Turner, all hands battle stations. General Isfahani, commander of the IRGC, watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. Around him, Russian officers coordinated air defense grids, linking Iranian and Russian systems seamlessly. Isfahani, they thought they could come into our backyard and leave untouched. Tonight, we teach them the meaning of deterrence. A Russian colonel approached. Colonel, Moscow has authorized full engagement if they cross the Hormuz line. That includes U.S. bases in Qatar. But deep beneath the mountains outside Qom, in an ultra-secret Iranian facility, a different plan was unfolding. 3 nuclear scientists under Russian supervision were sealing a reinforced chamber. Inside, a device sat on a steel platform, unfinished but operational enough. One of the scientists whispered nervously, "Why test it here? This could wipe out our own land." The Russian supervisor's cold reply chilled him. "It's not for Iran. It's for demonstration." At exactly 3 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, a blinding flash lit up the sky over the Gulf of Oman. It wasn't nuclear, it was an EMP blast. US and Israeli drones, satellites, and warship systems began shutting down. Entire radar screens went black. In the darkness, Russian and Iranian forces moved into attack positions. The hour Moscow had given was over, and somewhere in the silence, the real strike plan began, one that neither Washington nor Tel Aviv had anticipated. The USS Ronald Reagan floated like a ghost in the pitch-black waters. Without radar, sonar, or satellite link, the crew relied only on optical scopes and human eyes. Admiral Turner barked orders. "Turner, signal the fleet with light beacons. No radio, no emissions. If we're dark, they're dark too." From the carrier's deck, sailors could see strange phosphorescent wakes cutting through the water, the telltale sign of submarines approaching. In Tel Aviv's war bunker, Prime Minister Regev was given a chilling choice: wait and risk Russia crippling Israel's military before a single strike on Iran, or go all in and order Operation Iron Dagger, a preemptive special forces raid on Iran's Fordow nuclear facility. Regev, launch Iron Dagger. No announcements, no authorization. We go silent. A coded transmission went out to an elite Sayeret Machal unit already deep in southern Iran, disguised as civilian truck drivers. Captain Eyal Cohen and his 8-man team moved through the desert under moonlight. Ahead, Fordow's mountain entrance glowed faintly from security floodlights. Eyal checked his comm device, no signal. The EMP had severed all satellite uplinks. They were completely on their own. Cohen, we breach at 0200. No second chances. And remember, If Russian troops are inside, we neutralize and keep moving. As they neared the outer perimeter, the sound of Russian voices confirmed their worst fear. Moscow had already stationed Spetsnaz inside the facility. In the Kremlin war room, President Orlov stared at a live feed from an underground chamber in calm. The half-completed nuclear device sat there, surrounded by Russian engineers. Foreign Minister Petrov approached him. Petrov, once it's detonated, even at low yield, every nation will believe Iran has crossed the nuclear threshold. The US will have no moral high ground left. Orlov smirked. Orlov. And they'll blame Israel for the strike that never was. Back in the Persian Gulf, the US destroyer USS Mason picked up faint heat signatures. Suddenly, two massive water plumes erupted, Russian torpedoes inbound. Tactical officer. Impact in 25 seconds. Turner. Hard turn starboard. Countermeasures now. The first torpedo detonated harmlessly in the wake, but the second struck a supply ship, engulfing it in flames. The war in the Gulf had begun. Captain Cohen's team neutralized two Iranian guards silently. But as they reached the inner blast door, a Spetsnaz sniper opened fire from above. Cohen dove behind a concrete barrier, blood trickling from his arm. Cohen. We've been made. Push forward. We're burning daylight. The team planted thermite charges on the steel door. As it melted away, the sight before them froze their hearts. A nuclear core, surrounded by Russian technicians. Back in Tehran's command center, General Isfahani received a sealed envelope from a Russian officer. Inside was a single code phrase, Zimny Veter, winter wind. It was the signal to arm the device. As klaxons wailed deep underground, Cohen's team realized they weren't just trying to destroy a nuclear facility. They were trying to stop a false flag detonation that could start World War III.